All right. Hello, Darcy.
Hi, Duke.
How are you doing today?
Having a good day. Having a good day. Just,
That's awesome. Well, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for doing this. It's been such a privilege just getting to know you very recently here a little bit with a couple of conversations that we've had, and I think that your story, your life is so inspiring. And so I'm really honored to have you on the podcast, and thanks so much for the opportunity to chat with you a little bit today. And yeah, thanks for being here.
thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with you. I'm looking forward to getting to know you better.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is like my favorite thing about podcasting is getting to know my guests, and so I
Yes.
love it. I do want to say congratulations on your book, Beauty Beyond the Thorns. Um, how's that whole ride been with you? Just sort of, I know this is your first book, and I have a feeling that you've got some more in the tank that you're going to be writing about in the future. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, I feel like we're just kind of scratching the surface of what you have to offer in terms of your writing. I really love your writing style, your accessibility when you write. I think that that's something that um, really becomes really inspiring and helps people relate to you and to your story. And we'll get into all that. We'll go into all the details in just a minute. But I'm just curious, what has just sort of maybe your perception of the reception of your book? I know it just came out back in August, right?
Yeah, the end of August.
And so just been a short time, but what's that been like for you? How has this process been of sort of becoming an author and all of it? How's that been for you?
It cost a lot of money.
Oh, really? So that means you did it the right way, the real way.
Yeah, I keep spending more money on promotions and that kind of thing. It's so funny. I just want to get back to writing, but you can't do that. You have to promote your book and sustain it. And I want this message that I wrote about to just reach whoever God wants it to reach. So I don't know if that's a small reach. I don't know if that's a wide reach. That's kind of up to him. I think humanity, we would say, "Oh, I want to sell 1 million books," and have a wide reach, but that's not always what God wants. So
Hmm.
I'm kind of surrendered to, just working at promotion and letting him carry it wherever he wants. But it's been a lot of fun too. It's like, I don't know, I have a new purpose. I feel like God's given me
That's
a new
awesome.
direction. Yeah.
Well, as long as it's fun, as long as it's fun and you're enjoying it, I think that that's awesome. And so, with all of the promotional type stuff that you've been doing, like what has that looked like? What kind of things have you done? Because I would say that I've written a couple of books, and I have some more that are in different stages of development. And that's something that I think that at the beginning, especially with my first book launch, I think I did well at the very beginning of promoting it, but not well. Like I have not done well at all since then. So I'm just curious, like, what are some of the things that you've done to promote your book?
Well, just sharing with my family, and I've been giving a lot of books away. Um, I'm sending books to various people, various agents. There was an agent um, that I was working with because I was trying to decide, am I going to self-publish or traditional publish? And I had sent one query letter out to this agency and they rejected me. But another agent within that agency showed interest. So I sent him the book and he said, let me know how we can help you in the future. So I don't know if I can, traditionally publish my next one and make a wider reach. I don't know which way you get a wider reach, but I've done Facebook ads. which are the easiest, and they offer free, like they say, here's $20, spend
Right.
$20 on free promotion. So I'm like, ooh, okay, I'm gonna do that. So I've been doing that, but mostly giving books away. And then this Saturday is my first book signing. So
Really?
I'm doing
That's
that to
cool. That's
get,
exciting.
yeah, I'm trying to get into brick and mortar. And so this will be my first brick and mortar store. And then, we'll go to Barnes and Noble next.
That's awesome. I've heard that well, you were just telling me you've been on a bunch of podcasts
Oh,
since
true.
the book came out and stuff like that. So
True.
so how's that been?
Yeah, I forgot about that one. I've spent more time doing that one than all the others,
Then
but
probably all the other ones.
I love podcasting. I never knew that I would, but I feel like I have a message that God has given me that just kind of flows from me. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a voice for people that can't speak for themselves. I am disabled, for people that don't know. And I want to speak um, how good can come from suffering. And not just for people who are disabled, but for people who go through any kind of suffering. So I want that message to get out there because it's important. And I think there's a lot of hopelessness in the world right now, a lot of anxiety. And I think joy
Mm.
needs to be distributed. And I hope to be a messenger of joy.
Love it. I love it so much. Did I talk to you? Because I feel like this is something that I would have said to you by now, but stuff kind of blurs together. I don't have the
Sure.
best memory in the world, but I feel like I probably asked you about this. Have you considered starting a podcast of your own?
I did. I did. And it was when I was blogging, and I would just read my blog posts. And it wasn't very effective. I think I had 5 listens, something like that. And I started it on Anchor. I haven't shut it down. I don't know why. I don't know why I haven't shut it down, but I'm not using it either. So
Mhm.
I don't know if I could do that, be on the other side. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, the reason I ask is because I think that you definitely could. I'm sort of a little bit notorious for like pushing people to do podcasts, so I'm a little bit biased.
Yeah.
so so I'm not trying to push you into anything, but I think you have a first of all, I think you have a great speaking voice. And I think that in our just sort of even limited interactions that we've had, I think that you're so good at articulating what's in your heart and expressing that to people. And as you said, I mean, there are so many people out there that are battling that feeling of hopelessness. And you do have such a gift on the inside of you from what you've gone through, what you've experienced, and the beauty that God has revealed to you and through your life, through this whole process that you've been through. And so I not because you're already expressing that in all these different ways and writing the book and going on podcasts and in the speaking engagements that you do and all that kind of stuff. So not that you have to do a podcast, but I would just say that I would really recommend considering it at least because I do think that you have a great voice for it, both in terms of like your actual like in a practical sense, the tonality of your voice. I think you have a really good voice for podcasting, but more importantly, your voice in terms of what you have to say and convey to people, convey to the world around you. So anyway, that's just my little plug for podcasts. I feel like a podcast evangelist sometimes because I'm always like, you should start a podcast. You should start a podcast.
Oh,
But let's before we go too far, Darci, let's get into, if you would just share a little bit about yourself, about your story, about your past, and however you want to do that, and then we can sort of get into the why behind this book, and then we can get into some more specifics as we go forward. But let's hear a little bit about who you are, what you do, and if you can kind of walk us through a little bit of this journey that you've been on that's brought us to this place. And I know this is a loaded question, but that's brought us, to this place where we are today.
Sure. Well, I am married to my husband, Mark. I call him Remarkable.
Shout out to
Um,
Mark.
yeah,
Remarkable. I like that.
my
Okay.
remarkable Mark. And we have two adult daughters. One just turned 26, and the other's 23, coming home for Thanksgiving and Christmas. My oldest daughter lives about a half hour away, and her and her husband 11 months ago had a baby, so I'm a grandma.
Come on.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
and lots to say about that. I could talk on the pod. This could be like a grandparenting podcast because I could talk about her all day. But I have a really sweet little baby granddaughter who I get to see weekly. My husband and I watch her one day a week, so we've seen
That's
the
awesome.
weekly progression. Um, so my heart has always been to help people, and Mark and I used to be in the ministry. Um, I used to teach teens and women's ministry, and Mark did campus ministry at Cal Berkeley and in Thailand. He
Wow.
was so we've done church plants. Um, but I got out of that and did daycare to stay home with my girls when they were little. And I've been, I've worked in the financial world. I've worked in um, as a daycare person. I've been a nutritionist. I still am a nutritionist. Um, and recently writing a book. But um, so I have a story when my girls were little, and that was I had a fall down the stairs in our home. I was rushing, and as a young mother, you're always rushing. You just are, and
Yeah.
you're running. So I ran up the stairs, got a CD to listen to Christmas music. Uh, we listened to CDs back then, and ran back down the stairs, slipped on a piece of paper, and hurtled over the baby gate that was at the bottom of the stairs somehow. Don't ask me how, but the brain works in funny ways when you're
Wow.
falling and it says jump the baby gate instead of crash through it.
Wow.
And it would have been better had I crashed through it because after hurtling, I had the momentum where I crashed into the wall, and then that spun me around and I face planted into the floor, which
Oh my
injured my
goodness.
back. Yeah, so I
Mm.
had lower back problems. And this became increasingly more of a problem. Um, Over time, I spent more and more time in bed. So I was bedridden for a couple years, and then actually in a wheelchair for 2.5 more years. So
Hmm.
unable to walk for about 5 years.
Wow. And so what was that like? Because I remember um, reading your book and listening to the sort of description that you gave in the book, early on in the book, the description that you give about, I guess it would have been those first 2 years where you were bedridden, and you were talking about the intense pain that you were in. You were talking about just some of the things that I remember. You were talking about how you would be up in your room, laying in the bed, and you would like hear the sound of your family, living life together,
Yeah.
downstairs, and your little girls laughing and stuff like that. You'd kind of hear what was going on, and I remember something. I remember you saying something like, you would it would make you feel good momentarily, like there would be this joy that would come with it, like hearing your family enjoying life and living life and having fun, and it would sort of be this very momentary escape from the pain and sort of despair that you were in.
Mhm.
But then that would sort of be overcome or overshadowed. Don't, I'm probably butchering this. You've said it so much better than me, but sort of like overshadowed by, that feeling of I'm missing out on all of this because I can't be there.
Mhm.
So could you just maybe go into a little bit of detail about what it was like in that period where you were just bedridden and, in that stage of life for about 2 years?
Yeah, cutting right to the heart, aren't we?
Well, well, let me
Yeah.
let me let me say why, because as I was reading your book, I I was like really emotional as I was reading um through that description.
Yeah.
It really touched my heart, and I know that that's something that probably a bunch of people that have read your book, been drawn to your book, have been able to identify with,
Mhm.
among other things. But even I was reading some of the reviews of your book. Your book, congratulations, by the way, you have excellent reviews. I was
Thank
just
you.
reading reviews on Amazon. I'm sure there's reviews in other places too, but of people really, really identifying and saying that your book helped them to have hope. And I think that because you were so open about your struggle and about the pain that you were in, and really sort of painting a picture that allowed people to sort of see into
Mhm.
the challenge and the pain that you were in, so that you could ultimately lead them to this place of, well, here's the hope
Mhm.
that came out of that, and here's what God did, and here's what God is doing in my life as a result of that. I just think it's really, really powerful. So I'm not trying to, I'm not just getting at gory details for the sake of it, but it really was impactful for me as I was reading it. Just your story and what you went through, and I think that it's something that on different levels, but I think that a lot of people can identify with, and sort of find themselves in, maybe see some similarities for their own life, and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the context for why I'm curious.
It's the perfect question, really, Duke, because it's the most emotional question. And forgive me if I get emotional, but I was told by many people 20 years ago to write a book about what I experienced, and I couldn't.
Mm,
I couldn't do it because it hurts too much. And so in this book, I do paint a picture, and I have a little window into time about what happens when you are by yourself, when you're alone. And I was very alone in my pain, and listening to my family live life, the life that I used to live with them. And I did. I heard them eating dinner right below me, and I was imprisoned in my bedroom for two
wow.
years. I felt like it was a prison, and it was a small bedroom upstairs away from life. And my kids couldn't touch me, and that was horrendous because I was a stay at home mom. I chose to stay home so that I could be that for them. And now I can't. And
Mm,
they would reach out for love. And my heart is, wanting to reach back, but my body wouldn't let me. And so I had to not engage with my children in the most important thing, which
mm,
was expressing my love for them.
yeah.
And same with my husband. So I do paint a picture in the first chapter. I wasn't going to put myself in the book at all because I felt like I just want to write about everybody in the Bible and their experiences. But I prayed to God every time I sat down to write. And so I trust that my story should be in there, that little window that I paint in that first chapter. And so, yes, I would lay there and I would be cold and alone, and I would hear
Hmm.
them laughing, and Mark would do their hair, and I wanted to do their hair, you know,
Yeah.
and they would eat. And sometimes they would eat with me, but it's hard when you have a little 2.5-year-old. I mean, there's just much more work that goes into bringing dinner upstairs to mommy and eating together with mommy than eating downstairs and then rushing off to a soccer game. So
Sure.
I missed out on their life outside of the home. You know, I couldn't go to their soccer games. I couldn't go the first day of school. I just was very alone and felt very alone and was angry at God. I was angry because he gave me these two kids and now I can't raise them. Really? Like,
Yeah.
really, God?
Yeah.
And really, I can't participate. I can't bathe them. I can't tuck them into bed. And we had this beautiful nighttime routine where we would read a book and sing songs together. And that was the hardest part because we sang the Barney song and we would reach out to each other and give each other the great big hug and kiss from me to
Uh-huh.
you. And that's in the book. And so I would hear them singing that, and I couldn't be the one to give them that hug and kiss. And but I could visualize it because I had done it hundreds of times before and
Hmm.
tucking them in, and now, you know, Mark was doing it by himself, and I had such mixed feelings, but I was in a lot of pain, so much pain that I wanted to die.
I
Um,
remember I remember you said something in your book that really impacted me because it was such a simple statement, but really profound. And I think that it sheds a lot of light in a really simple way on how a lot of people feel. You said, hope I get this right. You said, I wanted to die just as much as I wanted to live.
mhm,
I thought that that was such a profound statement because there was like this battle going on in your mind of like, I'm not trying to be out of here, but this pain is so intense, and I
mhm,
can't, I can't enjoy life on really any level. But at the same time, like, I don't want to, I don't want to give up. I want this. I want to I want to live this life. I want to experience these things, that I believe that I'm here for, that I'm here for the plan of God for my life, that I'm here for my family. And I thought that that was such a really profound, statement that you made. Did I get that right? Was that
yep, yep, you got it bang on. And I wanted to die in the sense that I didn't know how I could go on
hmm yeah,
because the pain was so intense. I didn't want to take my life. I would never take my life,
sure.
but I asked God to. I begged God to take my
Mm.
life, but then in the same prayer, I'd say, God, please spare me. I had these dichotomous
Wow.
feelings,
Yeah.
you know, because
Mhm.
my family is my family. I don't want to leave them. I don't want to leave my husband. I was only 35 years old, you know, and my kids were young. I wanted to raise them. I wanted to have what we had before. Why can't we have what we had before? But we're always evolving and we can't have what we had before anyway. So yeah, I prayed both because of the pain. And if you have chronic severe pain, you understand what I'm
Mhm.
saying. You understand what I mean.
Well, just for context, one of the things that you said, that the pain was so great that you couldn't even have a sheet on top of you, right? Because the
Correct.
weight of the sheet was too much.
Yes.
Um, and so, what was the condition, the
So
name of the
I had
condition?
developed, yeah, as a result of my injury with my back, sometimes people develop what's called complex regional pain syndrome. CRPS. It used to be
Hmm.
called RSD, reflex sympathetic dystrophy. And what that is it's a severe nerve pain disorder, and it just increases the pain. Like a normal person would feel something, and we would feel it 10 times more. It's just
Wow. Okay.
really powerful pain.
Just like something in the pain sensors or the nerve sensors is kind of like haywire, and it's just sending
Mhm.
more impulses to the brain than it should, that kind of thing.
Exactly, exactly. So, yeah, I couldn't bear the weight of a sheet, and so I was cold. I'm cold anyway.
Mm.
I'm cold all the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
time, but so I was cold, which didn't help because you tense up when you're cold. And my husband would make he would at the end of the bed, he would make kind of this, you know, thing for the sheet to go over to cover my
Mhm.
feet, and then keep the sheet over me, but not on me.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
we became very inventive on how to do things. We had to
Yeah.
change things and figure things out over time. But we couldn't sleep together. Um, he couldn't touch me. We didn't have relations for years.
Mm.
Um, but he loved me. He stayed by my side. He was my hope, my dream, and we had to figure out how to get through this together. And it wasn't just me, and it wasn't
Yeah.
just me and God. It was me and God and Mark.
Yeah, that's something that I think gets often overlooked, and I have so much, I don't know what the word is, but, um, I wanna say reverence. I don't know if that's the right word, but for, the spouse on the other side of a challenge like the one that you're talking about, that, is there, loving you, but not able to fix your pain, not able to fix the problem, and then, sort of like also at the same time picking up the slack of life and taking care of the kids and doing the things that you would so be longing to do but can't. And so major huge shout out to Mark and and the Marks of the world that are, on that are, holding down the fort, so to speak, through these challenging circumstances. Darcy, one thing that you said, that I really appreciate is that you were mad at God. I know, so sometimes some people don't want to admit that they're mad at God, or they're blaming God or whatever. So I appreciate, just sort of your candor there. How did you begin to, sort of reconcile that in your life, in your relationship with God? You know, like you mentioned, God, you gave me these children, but now I'm in this situation and I can't, take care of them. And how did you begin to sort of reconcile that in your mind, in your relationship with God, moving beyond being angry with God to, sort of where you are today, and learning how to trust Him through the difficulty of the process that you were in?
Great question. I had a great counselor, and I met her before I fell down the stairs. And
Okay.
so we had already started some counseling, and I just believe in counseling. I believe everybody should have a counselor. You know,
Yeah.
I believe in it. So
Hmm.
anyway, she came over weekly and sat by my bedside, and I was able to talk with her, and she's a spiritual person. And I needed a lot of healing from things in my past, from some trauma that my body was holding on to. And this fall, I learned was a blessing. It became a blessing because it was an opportunity for me to heal from things in my
Mm.
past. So I spoke to her weekly. We worked on things, we worked on eye movement. We did a lot of healing practices together, meditation, talking. you name it. And she helped me to see the gifts in suffering. And it was because of her, Christina, my counselor, who's still my counselor to this day, by the way. She knows all of that. And she helped me to see God through suffering. And so going from being, why did you allow that, to how can we use this to be different in the future? How can I use this to be a different person? What is God trying to say to me? Instead of, why did you let this happen? It became, how are we going to use this for the future? So asking a different question. I was asking why, now how. And that became important. How are you going to use this for our future? And I'm saying our future because me and God are together in this
Wow.
future. What do you want us to do? Where are you taking us? And how can what I just went through benefit people around me and my family, especially my family? And so it was this mental shift that helped me change and make a physical shift. The mental was keeping me down, it was pushing me down. So I was unable to heal. But once the mental part of it changed, the emotional part of it changed, then the physical started to change, ironically. So I think
Wow.
it's supposed to happen in that order. And it did. I was healed of a lot of trauma from my past. So this injury became the conduit for gifts, for healing, for, and when I say gifts, I should be more specific. Um, so in my book, I talk, my chapters are about gifts, and I know we'll talk more about the book later, but just to clarify what gifts are, I talk about the gift of direction, or the gift of a shepherd, the gift of forgiveness. And once I started healing, I became more grateful for things than I had ever been grateful for before. Something simple
Wow.
like being able to reach for the water bottle by my bedside.
Wow.
I
Hmm.
became grateful for being able to do that. I don't think most people in their day thank God that they can reach the water bottle on the side of their bed,
No.
but it's really intense once you make that shift and you can see God. Like, God enabled me to do that. God enabled me to take my first step again. And every step I take is enabled by God.
Hmm.
So why aren't we thanking him more? And why did the lepers who were healed, the 10 lepers, why did only one come back to thank God?
Wow. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I started seeing with spiritual eyes more than physical.
Hmm. That's a great answer. And I think that, man, the gratitude and thankfulness is such a big deal, right? Like,
Oh,
in
yeah.
terms of shifting our attitude, shifting our mood, shifting our mindset, I think that that's something that I think it's one of the most practical things that we could do, but something that I think eludes us so often because it just becomes normal a lot of times, or it feels right almost to be in a pity party, or to be in a place where you're complaining about things, or where you don't really want to let go of the anger that you're feeling, or the pain that you're not wanting to let certain things go. And I just think that Thanksgiving is such a practical way out of that, because it helps you to get your focus off of just how you're feeling and onto something else. Like the Bible talks about a sacrifice of thanksgiving.
Mm,
And oftentimes it starts as a sacrifice because it's something that we don't want to do. It's something like, I kind of have to die to my pride. I have to kind of die to myself in a sense in order for me to really just get this out and to be thankful. But I love what you're saying there, because there are so many things that we take for granted in daily life that we're like, okay, well, this is just normal. Like I have this Bible that I could read whenever I want because we have freedom of religion here. No one's trying to take my Bible away and burn it. I can sing
Mhm.
as loud as I want on Sunday morning because there's nobody trying to shut down our worship services because we're free. Like I have things that I can point to, but there are people all around the world that don't have access to those same freedoms.
Right.
And you know what I mean? If those things, like you said, it's just something, when something is taken away from you, when something is removed from your life, then you have such a greater appreciation for it. And I just think that so often we can be really just kind of stuck in our head, stuck in our mess, stuck in that mode of complaining about things, not recognizing how good God is, how faithful he is, because we're always looking for something else, right? We're always looking for the next thing. And so we tend to focus on, okay, God, well, what have you done for me lately? Or God, how come you're not doing this? And failing to recognize all of the good things, all of the blessings, all of the amazing things that he has given us access to. And even though, like, how do I say this? Going through what you went through, I would in no way want to belittle that, and I can't even imagine, what that must have been like. Um, I I think you said something in your book about how it sort of has caused you to have a more enhanced perspective on
Mhm.
life and on the things that you do enjoy and that you do have access to.
Yes.
And because God is just so good, he's just so good to us. And I think that we really have a tendency to define God, to define his goodness based on how things are going in our lives, and
Right.
what we're going through and where we are.
Right.
And I always try to, like, I always try to encourage people to do this, and I try to remember to do it myself, and I'm not always great at it, but to remember that no matter what I'm going through, that doesn't define the goodness of God. The goodness of God
Right.
actually defines everything that I'm going through. So
Mm.
when I'm going through something good, like when things are good, when there's like those joyful moments and whatever it is, then, like, yeah, it's easy in a sense to be grateful. It's easy in a sense to be thankful for those things. But when things are not going well, when things are not lining up, when there are things in my life that I just do not understand, where there's things that I want to blame God for, or that I want to be upset about, or that are, physically or mentally, emotionally, whatever, um, bad in my life, that the goodness of God then becomes the defining factor in my life, where I can, if I can begin to look at my circumstances through the lens of God's goodness, where God is not less good because I'm going through something painful,
Right.
but God is the same. He's unchanging. He's always good. He's always faithful. So I can begin to stand on that reality, which becomes the foundation for how I can begin to see, the challenges and the things that I'm facing in my life.
Yeah, the things of this world are not the things of God. I mean, he
Hmm.
created us for a deeper purpose besides what we live here. And what we live here is meaningful, but we often decide what our purpose is instead of listening to what God says our
Right.
purpose is. I
Yeah.
never would have said to anyone ever, I'm going to be a nutritionist someday. What? Me? A nutritionist? Like, never. Or you're going to write a book and you're really going to do it. It's not just going to be a dream, but you're really going to write a book. Like, God, if we let God lead us, He will lead us to our purpose, to our
Yeah.
path. And that's determined by Him if we surrender to that. And if we look with spiritual eyes and look for the spiritual realm and, God, really praying and being a vessel, God, what do you want me to do? And I have a story. I have a I have a story about something else God has called me to do that wasn't my plan. So I haven't led a Bible study in a long time. A
Hmm.
long time.
Uh-huh.
And my husband, when he goes to run, he runs every 3 days. And he asks people when he's warming up, he says, "Can I pray for you today? Is there anything you want me to pray for you about?"
That's
Well,
awesome.
months ago, he met this woman who said, "Yes, can you pray for my marriage?" So he sees her occasionally, and she invited us over for dinner or for lunch, excuse me, a few weeks ago. So we went over, met her husband, had a very nice lunch, got to know this couple. And I'm 56, almost 57. She's 33. And I loved it. I loved it. And she came over. I invited her to come over to have a separate time. And she really opened up about her marriage. And yes, I've been in the ministry, but I'm not currently in the ministry. And there's, but there, she was saying all these things, and I was like, "What do you think if we start a Bible study?" And the reason why I said that is because of God. I wouldn't have said
Just kidding, God.
that.
What are you doing, God? Yeah.
However, this is why I think I was directed to say that, was because when this time, I'm disabled again, and this time I was laying on the floor on a mattress in our living room, so I wouldn't have to be in the bedroom all day and feel imprisoned like I did last time. And I was looking at the air vent, and I remember praying a prayer 3 years ago. God, I'm ready to go back to church because I had stopped for a while. And I said, I'm ready to go back to church, and please use this living room however you choose to.
Yeah.
And so that it was like our spirits, just the spirit in her, the spirit in me, and the spirit of God just came together, and whoop, we're starting a Bible study. And so I have a
Come on.
friend online who lives, far away, who's going to join us. I don't know who else is going to join us, but hey, I'm starting a Bible study.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, I'm like a vessel. So wherever God leads
Mhm.
me, I will go. I won't say no. And so apparently we're going to have a Bible study, and
Yeah. Come on.
that's the next thing.
That's awesome. Well, I want to get the rest of the story because you just mentioned that you are currently disabled again. So after that experience in the early 2000s and being bedridden for a couple of years and then being confined to a wheelchair for another couple of years, things actually got better and better and better, right? To where you were back to life again,
Yes.
back to being mom, being super mom, back to all that kind of stuff. And then when was it that you had another accident type thing that took place that kind of sent you back into, or that caused I guess, would you call it a relapse, or caused you to kind of go back into that
Yes.
state again?
Yeah, so I had been living a pretty normal life. The CRPS disappeared, which is uncommon for it to go away, but
Okay.
I attribute that to God and nutrition, nutritious
Hmm.
foods that He's made, and implementing that. And so, yeah, I became a nutritionist, opened my own practice, was living life with the girls, going to everything. I went to everything. I don't remember anything I
making up
missed.
making up for lost time. Yeah.
I was like, okay,
So good.
you're giving me a chance to redo this. I'm going to be at everything, and I can't think of anything that I missed, that
Wow.
the girls were in, and they were in a lot of sports activities, etc. And so yeah, I was there, and then my daughter got married. My oldest got married. Beautiful wedding, and I was rushing and running by some chairs. A chair slid down the wall, hit my ankle where the CRPS had settled the first time, reinitiating the CRPS in my body that had laid dormant for many
When you
years.
say where the CRPS had settled,
Hmm.
Does that mean, was it like a self-destruct button basically, like in that spot? Or like is that something that could have happened? Like what does that mean? Like
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, let me
I'm gonna get
explain it.
myself in the weeds if I try to, yeah, so you tell me what that means.
Yeah. So the CRPS, I had body-wide pain, but it affects mostly limbs, and it affected my feet. And my ankles hurt more than any other place on my body. That's what hurt more than anything, which is what, kept me from walking, was the
Mhm.
pain in my ankles. So when it hit my ankle, immediately my mind went to, oh my gosh, I might have just triggered CRPS and I might be in for the fight for my life again. And other people around me thought it might have been, just a sprained ankle. I was
Mhm.
hoping maybe it was just a sprained ankle, but it's 3+ years later. And Duke, the day you called me, I didn't know who you were. And I told you the story. It was so funny. For people that don't know, Duke
Yeah,
called me about this podcast. Is it okay if I share this?
absolutely.
Okay. So Duke called me. I didn't know why, but we had a mutual friend, so I knew he was somebody that
Yeah.
that I would get to know. But I had just walked around the cul-de-sac for the first time in 3+ years.
Come on.
Yeah. And I was so excited, and Duke calls me and he goes, "How's your day going?" or something like that. And so I don't know this man, but I tell him my story and I'm like,
Yeah.
"I just walked around the cul-de-sac for the first time in 3+ years." And Duke was the first to know. So, um anyway, there was a connection there and I told him the
Yeah.
story and then I'm like, "And who are you?"
Yep. Yeah, that's kinda one of those things that just that tends to happen. I don't know what it is, but I find myself every once in a while in conversations with people where, we don't really know each other, but there's some kind of, for some reason, there's some kind of connection or there's a comfortability, and then, before you know it, we're talking about, like, really, like, intricate details of life, and, I have to say I really enjoyed that conversation with you that day. First of all, because it was so cool to be able to celebrate with you, after you had that victory and taken
Mm,
that walk, which was, I guess, the longest walk that you had taken,
yep.
probably by far, right, in a number of years. And just to, kind of be in the right place at the right time, I guess, and be able to celebrate and experience that with you was really cool. And yeah, something about that just kind of like opened things up, and you know, just
Yeah.
it's cool. It's cool how God, brings people together, and I'm grateful for that.
Me too. Thank you.
So so let's talk about where you are today.
Okay.
I know that was only about a month or so ago. So where are things right now?
Well, it's interesting. I went to a new neurologist, which was my fourth. Again, I've been to a lot of doctors. This neurologist asked me why I was on such a low dosage of a medication. And I said, well, that's because my doctor prescribed that for me, um, is why. And she said, most people are on a higher dosage than you that don't need it as much as you. And this particular medication, I don't agree with being on a lot of meds unless you have to be.
Uh-huh.
And this one has enabled me. This one has helped me. She increased the dosage of my medicine by not doubling, but I take triple what I was taking.
Wow.
And that has enabled me to walk more. Thankfully. Thank God, you know.
Yeah.
And it's the stepping stone that I needed to get to where I'm at today, which is I can't walk much more than the cul-de-sac, but I can walk a little more than the cul-de-sac. So it's improvement. And I used to walk 45 minutes a day.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do that, but that's my goal again, because I would go on these prayer walks and I would just love seeing nature and being with God in nature. And so that's my goal. But what I can do is I can walk around the house now. I can get my own lunch. I can't cook dinner, so Mark does that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm beginning to be able to do more. And I won't let Mark do anything for me that I can do for myself, so that I can gain muscle back and,
Yeah.
develop these skills again. Because once you don't walk for a long time, you forget. And I was pretty unsteady the other day walking into church, or no, walking out of church. I felt unbalanced. So my brain has to relearn the balancing part
Okay.
of walking.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm learning to walk again. God has enabled me to be able to walk to the bathroom, to walk to go get my lunch. And I'm so grateful.
Hmm.
Again, it's the
Yeah.
gratitude, and He's delivering me again. And honestly, Duke, the writing of this book was so therapeutic for me, because, I prayed, God, what do
Yes.
you want me to write?
Yeah.
And it took my mind off of my pain. It was a diversion. And this diversion was in God's hands. And I sat down to write, but I didn't know what to write. So I just wrote, and sometimes longhand and sometimes on the computer. I also had hurt my hands, so I couldn't type. So I spoke into the computer, but that didn't do a very good job. It needed a lot of editing. So,
Yeah, I think it's well, yeah, it's tricky for sure.
yeah. Um, so, yeah, a lot of healing has taken place. Again, a lot of realizations about God. This time, I feel like I've been able to go deeper with God. And when I ask the why, it's I'm listening more, because He has a reason. There is a reason. It's not, He doesn't not answer that question. We think He
Hmm.
doesn't,
Yeah. Yeah.
but He answers it. And so when I ask the why, I go really deep with God in a place that no one else can go with me. It's a very deep, dark, lonely place that Mark can't enter. He can't go there with me. I'm the only one that experiences it, because it's so painful and so lonely. But in that space, God meets me there.
Hmm.
And I feel this oneness with Him. I feel an encounter with God.
Yeah.
I feel an experience of the Trinity, of the Holy Spirit. I feel
Hmm.
like I'm in communion with the Almighty and His Son and the Holy Spirit. And I feel this swirling, and I feel held, and I feel not alone, and I feel Him.
Wow.
He's there with me.
Wow. I love that you went there to that place of having those questions with God. I think sometimes I think that some Christians feel weird about that, like that somehow God can't handle our questions.
Mm,
And he's so, whatever questions you might have, even like really difficult questions, even questions where if you're questioning God, if you're questioning his goodness, if these questions like, why did this happen? Why are you allowing this to happen to me? It's always better to go to God with those questions than to just sort of internalize those things, because when you internalize it, I think that it can so easily create a hardness on your heart that actually moves you, in your mind away from trust in God. And
Mhm.
I think that if you'll be willing to go to him, and like you said, Darcy, I love that you said you'll still ask the question, but now you're listening more. I think that that's so key, because God will meet you. There is a place of encounter with the Holy Spirit where he does want to meet with you. He does want to reveal himself to you as your comforter. He wants to reveal himself to you as your shepherd. He wants to
Mm.
reveal himself to you as your healer, as your strength, as your peace, as whatever you need in the situation that you're in. He's your comforter, and he so longs to comfort you in a way that you can experience him and experience his goodness. And so I just wanted to I love what you said there, and I just wanted to use that to encourage people to go to God with the difficult things, not just the easy things, but with the hard things as well, because first of all, he already knows. Second of all, he can handle it. And third of all, it creates a context for you to meet with him and to experience him. Like when we look at some of the ways that God revealed himself to his people even throughout scripture,
Mhm.
like one of my favorites is when God revealed himself as Jehovah Rapha, as the Lord who heals you. The Israelites were in this place of bitterness because they had gone through the wilderness for 3 days and had no water, and they got to this place where there was water, but they couldn't drink the water because it was bitter and it probably would have killed them. And they're complaining, they're frustrated, but it was in that context that God revealed himself to them. And in this way that they hadn't experienced him before. I am the Lord who heals you. And so I think that wherever you are in life, even if you feel like you're all the way down in that pit of despair, you feel hopeless, you feel like there's no way out, that is a place that God has access to, and that he's able to meet with you there and to reveal
Mhm.
himself to you, and you can experience his goodness and his peace even in the midst of, however terrifying or uncertain or painful your circumstances might be. um, and I love what you said there too, Darcy, about writing, about how the writing process being therapeutic for you.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, that's so good. That's so good. I just because I know we're kind of running out of time here. I want to just ask you a little bit more about your book before we go, and if you could just maybe articulate it in your own words, like sort of what your heart is for people, for any potential readers out there that would think about picking your book up. Like, what is it that's really on your heart to convey to people, or that you want people to know about the nature of God, even from reading your book?
Thank you. We live in a world that's upside down. There there's a lot of paradoxes in the world, um, and in God. And I want to speak hope into this upside downness. When Jesus came, he turned things upside down. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And the poor
Mm,
in spirit are the people who are listening to him talk. And so he's giving them hope. And he just turned the world upside down. The Pharisees no longer dictated who was going to heaven or what life would be like. So Jesus, when he came, he turned everything upside down.
yeah.
And so if we can learn to live in this upside down world, even if we're poor in spirit, even if we're disabled, even if we're struggling with no matter what, we're struggling with addiction, we're struggling with pornography, we're struggling with
Yeah.
anything, God is where our hope is. And my book speaks to, if you are in a place of suffering, there's hope because of God.
Mm,
And I wrote a study guide that goes with the book so that you could personalize whatever, each chapter to your own life instead of to my life or whoever else I talk about. You can personalize it. I have, here's the study guide,
nice.
and then here's the book.
Awesome.
So there's both. But yeah, it's a book about hope. There's a lot of stories. It's light-hearted. When you read it, there's going to be some. People tell me they feel every emotion. They
It's
feel
awesome. Yeah. There's humor for
sad.
sure. Yeah. There's, yeah.
There's sadness, but there's also moments of joy because you can
Hmm.
see the coming out of, the realization of what the gift is within that part of suffering.
Yeah.
And you can see the turning, of the suffering into the gift, whatever that gift is. So there are 30 chapters. They're very short because some people who are suffering can only read a short amount. I'm working on the audiobook right now, so the audiobook will come out soon. But it's it's a lighthearted read. It's a convicting read. It asks a lot of questions. My goal was to glorify God and to bring hope to people. So I pray that that's what it does. But yeah, I outline each of the gifts that I've experienced that God has given me, including hope. He's given me perseverance. He's given me a shepherd. He's given me peace. He's given me mercy,
Come on.
forgiveness, repentance, etc.
So good. I love the cover too, and and I think that it's just super impactful, and I just want to encourage everybody to go check it out. So, where can they find your book, Darci?
Amazon.
Okay.
Right now, Amazon. Yeah. There are other booksellers that sell it, and you can find that on Amazon if you prefer to buy from another bookseller.
Hmm.
It's in Barnes and Noble online. It's not in their brick and mortar store yet. Haven't quite, when you're disabled, things go a little slower. So I haven't been able to quite get to Barnes and Noble to request them to carry it, but so online, yeah, on Amazon.
Awesome. So the book is called Beauty Beyond the Thorns. What's the subtitle, Darcy? Oh,
Discovering
Discovering Gifts in
Gifts and
Suffering, right?
Suffering.
Beauty
Yeah,
Beyond the Thorns, Discovering Gifts in Suffering. I didn't want to say it wrong, so that I
thank
just
you.
had to think about it for a second. Available on Amazon. Also encourage you guys to check out Darcy's website, darcyjsteiner.com, right? And you can find out some more information there. You can find the book there. I guess find some information on the book and some other
Right.
resources that Darcy has to offer as well. And Darcy, again, I really do just I appreciate you. I appreciate this connection, and I've really enjoyed this opportunity to chat with you and get to know you. And I'm just glad that I can be sort of a I don't know, mediary. I don't know if that's the right word, but between you and maybe a handful of people that haven't heard your message before and hadn't heard about your book before. And so I'm honored to have that opportunity and to have had you on the podcast. And really am just standing with you, believing God for your complete recovery, to going way beyond the cul-de-sac, and
Amen.
just for more increase, and just more strength every single day. So any just final thoughts before we officially wrap it up here?
Uh, Two, real quick. One, first, thank you for your ministry. Thank you for doing what you do because podcasting is a way to get the message out to people. And just being in the ministry, serving people the way you do. Thank you for your ministry and everything that you do, Duke.
Thank you.
Truly appreciate that. And then to people who feel like giving up or feel hopeless, it, please don't give up.
Hmm.
Please look to God, open the pages of a Bible, look in the Gospels, and read the red print. I read the red print a lot and imagine myself there as a listener, walking beside Jesus or in the crowd, listening to Jesus. This isn't an ancient book. He is still speaking these words today
Yeah.
to us. So put yourself in a place where you are in his midst. You're hearing what he's saying and listen and know that he is with you and you don't have to give up. He will walk with you through the storm, and the way to walk through it is through the Word of God. The Word of God will help you through.
That's so good. That's so good. Well, thank you everybody for stopping by to check out this conversation with Darci Steiner. Don't forget to check out the book Beauty Beyond the Thorns on Amazon.com. Also, check out Darci's website, darcijsteiner.com. Links for these things you'll find in the show notes and all that kind of stuff. But I really appreciate you guys. If this conversation blessed you or added any value to your day, if you consider subscribing, sharing, or leaving a review, I would greatly appreciate that. And I look forward to seeing you guys in a future episode. Darci, thank you again.
Thank you.